And I'm starting. All right, good afternoon. I'd like to introduce Richard Marshall. Check out Richard's bio for more details. I've known Rich for, probably 12 years, and an amazing background and a real great perspective on the industry. So let me allow Richard to start his presentation if you think COVID was bad. Let me share the slides here and we'll get going. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, John. All right, I guess I'm in control of my slides and I'll start my presentation. At the onset, I need to thank, should I start talking now, John?
You may need to request control, but if you have control, then you're all set.
All right, I'm requesting control now. And just tell me when to start talking.
Yep, go right ahead.
All right. John, thank you very much for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to make a presentation at CornCon. As far as I'm concerned, CornCon is probably the best security conference in the country, especially now. But I've been involved with you guys for at least 3 or 4 years. I was there a couple of years ago, and I'll tell you, a hospitality and the opportunity to meet with fine folk out there is just absolutely astounding. I know those of you in the audience are thinking it's kind of odd to hear a presentation about modern day cybersecurity from a guy who's been in the business over 25 years. But I've been speaking a lot at Black Hat and DEF CON. That's where John and I first met. And then we further cemented our relationship at the RSA conferences. And so we've had a close working relationship all of these years. But probably the best experience we've had together was at CornCon a couple of years ago. Great group of people. It was wonderful to be live with everyone, and I certainly look forward to being able to do that again next year. There's just something about the camaraderie of everyone being together and sharing ideas. All right, for those of you in the audience, I don't know whether you can respond to any of my questions, but I'll just assume that you can. I want you to take a very close look at this first slide and tell me what's wrong with it. Tell me what's missing. Tell me what needs to be corrected. Well, I'm not going to wait forever for an answer, so I'll help you with this. Most analysts, when they're looking at a screen trying to find attacks, look at details, which is very, very important. But it's also very important that you note the obvious. And so this slide was prepared with a defect initially to help point out the fact that you need to look for the obvious. If you look down here at my name, you'll see that there's a dot missing from the L. Most people don't see that. Hardly anyone will see that. But I use that to illustrate the point that don't overlook the obvious. It's very critical to make sure you catch everything. Slide. All right. All right, trying to move to the next slide. I know it's going to take a little bit of time. Here we are. Here's today's objective. You know, we're dealing with a completely new situation with the situation associated with everyone having to stay home. And so we're accustomed to working in islands of security, you know, offices where everything is nailed down. We're very comfortable with the security arrangement that we're working with. And we think we have that under control. At least we have it under control a lot better than now. So we are in a position where we're moving from islands of security, as I like to refer to them, to lily pads of vulnerability. Now, what do I mean by lily pads of vulnerability? Everyone, or a large number of people, are working from home now. And it's creating quite a few problems together, but they're also involved in shareware. Everybody's using the same Wi-Fi system. And when they're all using the same Wi-Fi system, they're not all paying attention to security considerations. Children don't have any choice. They need to be on the internet to do their homework, to attend class, as it were. And those that are working from home don't have the same security procedures built into their home system that they do in the office. When they're in the office, they realize that the security that's built into their system is going to help protect them. But when they're at home and they don't have that built-in protection, then that opens a lot of doors for nefarious activity, and quite a bit of nefarious activities ongoing. So what I'm going to try to provide today is what I've stated in the objective, and let's work together to try to reach that objective. Now, the next objective is I'm working from home, so it's a little slow. Let's see, we jumped ahead. Oh, this is going too fast. Let's go back a few slides. Well, it looks like everything's going to happen at one time. And I'm going to ask you to take over. This thing is beyond my control.
That's
I'm
fine.
going to
That's fine,
relinquish
Rich.
control of this
Rich.
to you.
We'll make this work.
All right. Shall I give up remote control now?
Yeah, I have control. Would you like me to click?
Okay. Yeah, go back to the second slide.
All right.
I'm giving up remote control to you. I don't know why I jumped ahead.
We got this one?
Yeah, keep going back. No, the actual second slide in the deck. Keep going back.
Pew pew. Pew pew map.
Keep going back.
Yeah, it's parsing here. Okay.
Keep going back.
This one, background info.
Okay, yeah, this one, yeah, yes. All right, a little bit of background on this whole guy. I formerly was the Associate General Counsel for Information System Security or Information Assurance at NSA. Why is that important? It was there that I learned to be a hacker. I was trained by NSA to be a hacker. I was halfway decent then. I'm worthless now. Of course, that was 40 years ago and 40 pounds ago when I had a ponytail. And as you can see, I don't have that much hair left. But I still am familiar with the concepts. In my job at NSA I was a legal architect for the nation's first information warfare exercise called Eligible Receiver 97. You can look it up on the internet. There have been several books that have been written about our participation in that. But basically, we took a group of about 15 to 24 pretty seasoned hackers, and we were designed to attack a DoD system. And my job was to make sure we could do it legally without having to go to jail, because if you violate Title 18, it's usually a felony, and going to jail is not a very good career move for most people. But we did not use anything special, and that's the point I want to emphasize here. We did not use anything that was unique to NSA in terms of hacking. All of the hacking techniques that we used, we downloaded from the internet. Now, this was back in 1997, probably before many of you were born. But you can still download from the internet today. And that's a point to remember. The adversaries are many. They're all over the world. They're dedicated, they're focused, they share information attack profiles very generously. So the threshold, the attack surface is very, very large. Uh, After I left that, I worked at the White House developing some policies on how to protect the critical infrastructure and cybersecurity initiatives. And I mention this point because had those policies been implemented as they were originally drafted, I think we could have avoided a lot of the problems that we're experiencing today. But unfortunately, they were over coordinated. Everybody in the government wanted to have their piece of the pie. And so things were diluted in terms of strength. And so we lost an opportunity. Maybe someday that'll come back. And I think we're starting to get a better hand on it now, both with the Department of Homeland Security and the National Security Agency. And it was at the Department of Homeland Security that I was a director of global cybersecurity management, which was an absolutely fascinating opportunity. I worked with 25 to 30 young individuals. They were young enough to be my children, actually. Every one of them had a master's degree in computer security. And I think I learned as much from them as anyone possibly could. I am an advisor to a number of boards and national and international corporations. I thoroughly enjoy that. I also serve on a number of boards of startups that I do gratuitously, pro bono, just to help these young folks get started. Let's go to the next slide, John, and sorry I can't do this a little smoother. All right, the focus here is how to keep hackers out of your system. And you know, the previous presentation, which I thought was very, very good about malware, focuses on the persistent threat that continues day in and day out. And of course, it's more critical now that we are working from home. So one of the first things you need to do is to identify and correct your vulnerabilities. And that means you've got to look very closely at who you're connected to, how you're connected with them, because there are a number of ways that the attacker can come in and take advantage of you. One of the best things you can do in terms of time, effort, energy is to keep your system patched. We call it Patch Tuesday when Microsoft comes out with their latest list of patches. And all too often, most experts are a little late in installing those patches. So while we may call it Patch Tuesday, the adversary calls it Hacker Wednesday. They get this same list of patches and they take advantage of it right away because they know we don't always patch our systems. And this is particularly true when you're dealing with the financial services sector. Banks and other complex entities have so many systems operating that before they install a patch, they want to review the patch to make sure it doesn't have any adverse impact on the operating system. That's also true with the islands of security. Not necessarily true with the pattern, with what I call the lily pads of vulnerability. So when you're at home, you're your own system administrator when you're operating from home. So it's important to you, it's incumbent on you to make sure you patch your systems as soon as a patch comes out. That'll certainly help things. Okay, John, ready for the next slide? All right, this is a depiction of the attack origins, the attacks types, etc. And you'll see that they're coming from all over the world, areas that you don't necessarily think are going to be that aggressive in attacking the United States. Now, this depicts attacks on the United States. They're also attacking Europe, etc. But it's amazing to see where all of these attacks are coming from. You'll notice most of them are coming from China, a few from Russia. We also have some attacks coming from Western Europe. But just because the attacks are shown to be coming from Western Europe doesn't necessarily mean that's where they originated. All too often they originate in Russia or China, and then they're spoofed as coming from Western Europe or indeed from South America. Okay, let's move along to the next slide, John. Thank you for your help. All right, I love this slide. This is a modification of a thing called night lights. It shows where electricity is in the world. And the point to remember here is that where there's light, there's an opportunity for a hacker. And you'll notice there's a tremendous amount of light in the United States and of course, Northern Europe and Western Europe. But also look at the activity in India and in China. It's amazing. And then of course, this is 24 hours a day. Do not make the mistake of underestimating your adversary. They're intelligent, they're smart, they're aggressive, they focus on attacks over and over again. They don't have that much else to do. They don't have jobs. So the easiest way for them to make money is to attack you and take advantage of those systems. So they're highly motivated to do that. All right, next one. We're moving right along here, John. All right, I know this is a busy looking slide, but this is the anatomy of a target data breach. And if you follow along, you know, numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, I'll give you an opportunity to read the notes as these take place. And you can see that these are very sophisticated attacks. And again, these come from areas where you would not ordinarily expect them to be that skillful and that technically qualified, but obviously they definitely are. One of the easiest ways is to come in through a third-party contractor. We've seen that over and over again. One of the more egregious examples was when they came in through an air conditioning system and then was able to get in and take over the system. They do it gradually, they do it slowly. They don't want to be caught, they don't want to be detected. They want to do a complete internal survey of your system, take what they want, take what they need, and normally when they exfiltrate it, it's done in the middle of the night when you least expect it. It's done low and slow, and it's encrypted, so it's very difficult for you to catch it as they're going out. Moral of the story, catch them coming in. Catch them when they're inside. Stop them from taking your data. Next, please. All right, exploits unfold in stages as we illustrated in the previous slide. On the right screen, you'll see activity actually taking place. One of the things they first do is reconnaissance, and they take their time doing that. They're looking at system weaknesses, and they also want to exploit personnel weaknesses. And here's where it gets become important, both in the island of security and on the lily pads of vulnerability.
Rich, I think your video and audio froze up there. All right, I will. We'll get Rich back in here. You can watch the animation and let me get him added back in. Looks like he just dropped. Okay. There we go. Rich, you're back.
And once they get in, then they start you taking advantage of user privileges. They continue the reconnaissance. The target data is exfiltrated. They may remain and retain control of your compromised systems and keep visiting. So it's incumbent upon you to keep monitoring and making sure you can keep them from coming in on time.
All right. You want the next slide?
Yes, please. Yes. Yeah, and this is not a site that you want to see on your screen that shows that you've been hacked and attacked. You don't always see this, but when you do see this, your heart stops. Next slide, please. All right, be alert to, as the previous presenter said, you know, the ones that are doing the attacks are still using their old technical systems to come and attack you. In the past, they looked for an unwitting executive. They don't have to do that now, again, because you're on the islands of vulnerability. Anyone that is using their system from home can be subject to an inviting email to open it up. And once you open up a bad email, then you get malicious traffic coming in. And they're very skilled at using remote administrative tools. And they can take advantage of your systems in multiple ways and open you to buffer overflows and other infections. Very dangerous situation. Next slide, please. All right, many attacks are tailored specifically to attack your particular system. Now remember, they cut their teeth on going after very sophisticated systems in the islands of security, the office environment. But now that they're taking advantage of the lily pads of vulnerability, they still use their polished techniques, but it's much easier for them to come in and take advantage of the home system. And then from the home system, then they can hop into the more sophisticated systems at the office. So you need to be very careful. System administrators need to be very careful, particularly with traffic coming from home systems, to make sure that a bad guy or a bad gal is not coming in to take advantage of your situation. On the left of, under the caption of many attacks are tailored, there are important notes to take advantage of. And once again, we notice that HVAC systems often provide unexpected pathways. Hackers do not need to rely on backdoors or zero days that they can attack. They've polished, they've practiced, they know how to get in, and it's much easier to attack the home user than it is the office user. But remember, once they get into the home user, it makes it a lot easier for them to get into the office. Next slide, please. All right, this is okay. Here we go. Here it's important to understand everything about your system, because the bad guys and gals don't need anything major. They're very happy to look for something small and exploit that, something that's overlooked. And so they'll use hard-coded passwords. They look for clear text to take advantage of. Again, using legacy protocols. They're very dangerous to be exploited, looking for temporary cracks. And here's the other one to be alert. It's called BYOD, bring your own disaster. People like to say bring your own device, but it's really bring your own disaster. And we see that more and more, not just from the home user using their home computer, but they're also using their iPads to connect, and particularly their iPhones, which are, well, their mobile devices, which are extremely vulnerable. Okay, next slide, please. Next slide, John.
Yeah, it's up.
Okay, yeah, okay, yeah, they're a little slow. Okay. Um, limit your access privileges to those that really need it. Don't give it across the board just to be nice to people. If they don't need access to a certain line, don't let them have it. And I'm going to beat the drum on patching your systems. That 99% of the vulnerabilities I've read many times on surveys, if you have your system properly patched, you reduce the opportunity significantly for someone to come in and take advantage of the situation. And it's also very important for the system administrator, and it puts a lot of pressure on the system administrator to actually read the logs. So many things are automated now that we have a tendency to say, well, when the alarm goes off, I'll pay attention. But they're not foolproof. So the system administrator really has a tough job to read the logs, to know what's going on, to know what to do. And that's increasingly important now that the home systems are now connected to the office systems. Next slide, please. All right, I love this depiction, and this is the last slide, but here you see what is viewed as a firewall, and people have very interesting ways to get through that firewall. Some of them are very sophisticated, but some of them are very plain, just kind of walking around it, as we've seen in this depiction. So I just caution you to be extra special careful out there, especially those that are working from home, especially those that are working in an office and are monitoring the activities of people who are working from home. Realize that because of COVID-19, we're at home, but the adversary's at home too. They're working from home, but they're very sophisticated in their developed attack techniques, and certainly are having a field day coming in, not only with ransomware, but also attacks to disable the 9/11 systems for a while. We've had that problem. And more importantly, we've had some shutdowns associated with power systems here in the United States. So the world is becoming increasingly vulnerable, particularly because of COVID-19, and it just behooves all of us to work together to help protect each other to prevent a bigger cyber disaster that may happen. John, I thank you very much for letting me have the opportunity to share the opportunity to converse with these fine folk. And I know we're pretty close on time, but I'm available to answer questions that you think I might be able to answer. Don't
Well,
embarrass me by asking something too hard.
all right, folks.
But I'm happy to try to answer questions as they come up.
Please put any questions you might have into the Q&A window.
Maybe I'll be lucky like the last guy and not get questions.
Well, I'm sure there will be lots of questions, and it's too bad we're not in person so that people could sit down and share a drink and talk to you, right? That was what was so much fun, I think, when you were here last.
Oh,
was
gosh.
Just being able to sit down with the whole audience, the whole crowd afterwards, and chat and have a drink and get to meet their families.
Oh, that was great. And, one of the things that I enjoyed the last time I was there, I talked to, because there were a lot of parent-children combos in the audience. And I was very encouraged to see the parents being there with their children and encouraging them to go into the IT arena. It's a growth industry. I mean, all of the presenters will agree with that. It's a growth industry. And I commented on the fact that I took my son, who was a young teenager at the time, with me when I went to Black Hat and DEF CON and put him to work. He was basically serving as a guide to take speakers to the particular forum where they were to give presentations. He got really excited about IT, and now he's an IT wizard, and I'm very proud of the fact of what he's done. And I should give him a, as they say in young people's language, a shout out to the fact that he helped put together the technical aspects of this presentation. So parents in the audience, encourage your children to go into IT. It's a growing field. It's a safe field. You'll always have a job. Thank you, John.
Well, Rich, we
And
have
thank your staff.
one question here from Jake. He says, once you're in cybersecurity, what is the best way to succeed and move up through the ranks, in your opinion?
Well, that's a great question, regardless of the field that you're in. Number one, do the very best job that you can possibly do. Be recognized for being successful and competent and responsive. Those are two critical things to be recognized. And once you are recognized as being competent and responsive, then you have an opportunity to meet more and more challenging environments. I've spoken a lot to senior managers about this particular issue. And to a person, they will say, we're always on the lookout for talent. There never seems to be enough talent. There are a lot of people that can do something, but we need people to do something special. So the point is to become very competent at what you're doing, very responsive in what you're doing. And management will notice that. If they don't, then you need to help them understand what you're doing. Do it in a polite and respectful way initially. If you have to be obnoxious later, then do it. What do you have to lose? But believe me, managers that are doing their jobs are very sensitive to identifying people who are competent and responsive, and they want to put them in more challenging positions. Managers want to keep their own job, and the only way they can keep their job is to have a performance team that does well. I hope that answers your question satisfactorily.
We had another quick question here. I say quick, kind of tongue in cheek. The question is, where do you see cryptography going in the future?
Oh gosh, you know that, John. If I were there in Iowa with you, this would be a topic for what we both would refer to as a three-drink subject. We would talk about it long into the night. There are so many advances in cryptography now. I think one of the ones that's safest to talk about from my perspective is quantum. We're seeing great advances in that, not just from the United States, but also from China. If you were to press me on the point, which you obviously are doing, I would opine that I think China probably has the lead on that now, or at least they are giving better press about the fact that they think they have the lead on that now. I am not a cryptologist, but I'm very sensitive to the fact that we need to devote more resources to advancing that technology. So if you're an expert in that field, or if you have an interest in that field, there's a tremendous opportunity for you to make great contributions, and I encourage you to do that.
All right. Well, I think we need to cut this short because we're using Zoom, and I don't want China to get offended, Rich. But we don't have anything else in the Q&A window for right now. So let me just thank you for coming. This is really super special that you would take the time to come here and present and just share with our audience. Obviously, a lot of the people who are on have been at CornCon in the past, and remember meeting you in person and having conversations. And so it's great to do this in a virtual sense. So thanks again. And we
Let
really
me make
appreciate
one
it.
other wearing a Tommy Bahama Hawaiian shirt just for the occasion, because John, as you know, whenever I give a cyber presentation, I always wear a Tommy Bahama shirt. Not that I'm advertising Tommy Bahama, but it's just part of my trademark, I guess.
It's your genre. It's your, yes. All right. Thank you, everyone. We will be starting up here in about 7 or 8 minutes with our next presentation with Bob West and Mike Coogan on identity in the COVID-19 era. All right. Thanks, Rich.
Yes, sir. Thank you.